My town has never been dangerous. I think the last reported kidnapping happened long before I was even conceived. Due to this illusion of safety, I never felt scared walking around after dark. This one particular time, it was way past midnight when I was walking home from buying a soda at the local vending machine. I was about a block from my house when something caught my attention up ahead. It appeared to be someone crouching on the ground. I was not one to judge someone for being out this late, considering I was doing the exact same thing, so I just decided to leave it be. As I got closer, I noticed the person looked a lot less human. It was definitely humanoid, I can say that for certain. I apologize for lack of a good description, but it was quite dark and I could only barely make out its shape. Needless to say, I was getting kind of creeped out. When I got too close to the creature, it dashed away. Like the sleep-deprived idiot I was, I decided to pursue it. I chased for a good while before I lost sight of it. I looked around for any noticeable tracks, maybe footprints or something. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting to find, considering I was standing on the basketball court next to the concrete bandstand. Dejected, I turned for home before hearing something. It kind of sounded like a mix between a baby bird chirping and a cat meowing. It appeared to come from behind the bandstand. I followed the sound to a nest of sorts. It was a mass of torn clothes, leaves, grass, and sticks, with a darker moving mass in the middle. The mass then separated a bit, revealing a head-like form looking up at me. It made that noise again, louder this time. Right after the mass made the noise, I immediately heard something quickly approaching. I very smartly dashed away from the makeshift nest, hiding behind a nearby telephone pole. The creature I saw before hurried over to the nest, preparing to sniff it and around it. It was now that I realized how hard my heart was beating. A cold sweat drenched my shirt, causing the late night breeze to make me shiver. Suddenly the creature turned to look at me. I could make out two piercing eyes in the darkness, making direct eye contact with me. It slowly began to let out a deep, almost primal growl. I didn't stick around to find out what it would do to me, quickly running as fast as I could away. I quickly sprinted home, closing and locking the door behind me. I almost immediately passed out after that, from a mix of terror, exhaustion, and general sleep deprivation. The next morning, I was called by my landlord. He asked if I was chased by a dog, to which I told him no. He told me he thought I was because of the deep, dog-like scratches on my door. Last year, when I got my driver's license, me and a group of friends decided to celebrate by going out to party at some farm that some family member of my friend Alex owned. We decided it would be a good place to do that sort of thing since it was a rural area, and therefore we wouldn't be disturbing anyone if we got real loud. We eventually got there after a 4-hour drive, and because I was the driver, my friends told me to just relax and do whatever while they unloaded everything we brought. So I explored the house, the barn, and the field. The field was full of corn, and of course that meant there was a scarecrow. Now, I don't want to be one of those people who pretends like they're not scared of anything, but I grew up with parents who loved horror movies, so I was used to seeing scary things and not really being affected by them all that much. So when I saw the scarecrow, I sort of started joking around about it to myself, but then I touched its arm. It felt way too sturdy for it to be full of hay. Something about it rubbed me the wrong way, but then I reminded myself that the area was still in a small town. So it was possible that some little hooligans liked to come down and mess with the scarecrow, and so they decided to fill it with something more sturdy so it would be harder to mess up, or something like that. I still couldn't help but feel a little freaked out. At the time, I didn't know why it worried me so much. I was about to mess with the scarecrow a little more out of curiosity, to see why the arm felt so real. But then my friend Alex came from behind. "Hey, we're almost done unpacking everything, so I decided to come check on you. What are you up to?" She startled me, but as soon as I was done being a scaredy cat, I immediately felt a whole lot better. Alex seemed to just make the whole vibe feel nice. I remember there was this sewer that me and my friends liked to walk through, and it was always way less scary with her around. Just for an example. Oh, I was just checking out the scarecrow. The arm feels a little heavy and stiff. Here, look. I got her to feel the arm, and she agreed that it was off-putting. And then I saw a red spot on its wrist, and I asked, "What is that spot?" She pointed out that her family members who own the farm have to work with tools that can be sharp and dangerous. So it's possible that one of them cut themselves by accident, and then took the scarecrow to do some sort of maintenance, or whatever with it, and got some blood on it. I decided to just accept that answer, but I still couldn't stop thinking about it. It didn't help with the feeling I already had before. We wanted to get high, so we just decided to go back to the house with the others to party, and eventually, Alex started telling everyone else about the scarecrow. He found the scarecrow out in the field. He said it gave him this weird feeling. She worded it like she wasn't put off by the feeling it gave either, but I couldn't blame her for not wanting to sound like she's scared of a simple scarecrow. I was messing around with it. Its arm felt weirdly sturdy and heavy. It didn't feel like it was full of hay at all. It felt like a person was in there, I explained. My family probably just decided to fill the scarecrow with something more sturdy to keep kids who come down to the farm from destroying it so easily. And that sounded like a reasonable explanation, so we just decided to laugh it off and joke about it. Eventually, at like 5 a.m., after a night of getting stoned and drinking, we all went to bed. Well, my friends did. I have a feeling that I was more sober than them, and so I was thinking about things a lot more. I was sharing a room with Alex and my friend Lucas, and I had the sound of Lucas snoring to keep me up. But then, eventually, it started raining, and I fell asleep. I had a dream that I was in some fancy apartment, above the clouds, and while that would personally be preferable for me, I was also getting skinned alive. And of course, it was by the scarecrow. I don't think I described the scarecrow, but let me give you an idea. It's important to know that whether or not the damn thing was stuffed with a human, it still looked creepy. It was a weird design for a scarecrow. It looked like it was wearing some sort of gas mask. The eyes looked like the goggles of a gas mask, and the mouth had that filter-looking thing instead of a regular mouth. Imagine if a human wasn't wearing gas mask, but had the eyes and the mouth of one. There's no real better way to describe it. It wore a plaid button-up shirt, jeans, and a straw hat. Basically, apart from the face and the weird sturdiness of it, it was a regular scarecrow. I couldn't see what was behind those goggle eyes, so I had to stare into the empty, unfeeling pit as my skin was peeled back and sliced off with a scythe. I eventually woke up around 90 minutes later. At least that's what I was guessing from the time. It was my friend Alex who woke me up. "I think we should go. This place has been giving me the creeps, and I heard whistling from the field earlier," she told me in a worried tone. I agreed with her, especially after my dream. But I was the only one in the group who had a driver's license. We couldn't just leave them behind. And I wasn't sure they'd be willing to cancel our big trip because of something so seemingly small. I mean, what would we do? Leave them there? With that thing in the field? I decided with Alex that I would tell the others that I had a family emergency or something, and that I needed to go back. Of course, I felt bad about lying, but me and Alex couldn't handle being in the same area as that thing. So I told them, and we started packing. After I had finished packing my things, I decided to visit the scarecrow one last time out of curiosity. As irrationally creeped out by the thing I was, I couldn't help myself. I decided to try to see why it was so heavy and stiff. I pulled back the burlap hand, and behind it was what looked like a hand, a human hand, that had been skinned. It looked as though the arm had been cut into 4 strands and twisted together to form a new arm. At first, I thought it was a human hand, but then I looked at its fingers. They were skinny and skeleton-like, but seemingly covered in flesh. They looked claw-like. You could see grooves in between each bone. It was like Jack Skellington's hand, but covered with meat. This was not the hand of a human. This was the hand of something evil. I clumsily tried to put the covering back on, and then I booked it over to the car. Luckily, I had been busy long enough for them to be nearly done packing, and in a panic I told them that we needed to get the hell out of there. As soon as we had everything secure in the truck, I sped onto the road and drove away as fast as possible. And after explaining what I had seen to my friends, the only one who believed me was Alex, I assume because she had felt the scarecrow for herself. But knowing that we were safe and wanting to lighten my mood, she started trying to goofy and crack jokes. She had nearly succeeded in making me feel better, and maybe even forgetting about it. But the idea that we not only spent time partying, getting high and drunk in the same vicinity as that creature, and not only that, we fell asleep in the same area as that creature, and Alex even heard it whistling. I don't know what it was, why it was in that scarecrow, or if it was even alive, but I will never forget what I saw underneath its burlap skin. I'm a nurse. It's been a dream of mine to help people out ever since I was a little girl. Well, after years of med school, I'm finally here, making a difference. But I'm not exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to work in a hospital, saving lives, making a difference, but what I do right now makes me feel useless. As if I make no difference whether someone lives or dies. I work in a nursing home. That probably sounds great. It sounds like I'm a great person caring for the elderly. Well, that's not exactly the case. Where I work, there's death every day. Everyone here is miserable. Even I, a once happy-go-lucky girl, am now clouded with doom and gloom. However, I stayed in this place for years. I wanted to help, even if it was taking a toll on my mental and physical health. It all started a few months ago, when a little old lady came in. From what they told us, she had no friends or family. In all honesty, I didn't know who the person who dropped her off even was. Nobody told me anything. Her name was Agatha, and she was the sweetest thing. I felt bad for her, though. Her mind was there, but her body was gone. By gone, I don't mean dead. I mean, she couldn't move a muscle. It seemed the only thing that she could move on her own was her mouth, and even that didn't move much. You see, she was a very shy lady. She only spoke when needed, didn't really connect with the other residents. One day she called me into her room. This was about 3 weeks into her stay. I assumed she needed to go to the bathroom, so I asked her if she needed anything. However, when I asked, she shook her head no. I could tell something was off. So I came closer to her bed. Something wrong, Agatha? I asked. For the first time ever, I heard her raspy voice speak for something other than food.
Come sit with me, dear.
In awe, I nodded, smiled, and pulled a chair next to her bed.
Samantha's your name, correct?
She asked. Yes, it is, I smiled. If you want, you can call me Sam. That's what most of the other residents call me. It's easier to pronounce.
Oh, but Samantha's such a pretty name. Much prettier than Agatha.
The old lady joked. Taken aback, I smiled, not sure what to say. I was surprised she was able to joke around at her age. Hell, I was surprised she was talking to me at all. Her whole body, neck down, couldn't move or function. She couldn't even sit without being held up. However, she was still sweet and making jokes, and really gave me hope. Maybe my job wasn't as dreary as it seemed. How's about we give you a nickname then? How does Aggie sound? I suggested. Agatha smiled.
It sounds lovely, Sam.
After that day, Aggie and I would talk for hours. On my break, during mealtime, and at night, even after I clocked out. We grew a connection, much more of one that I'd had with any other residents. It really made my day, seeing her smile. One day, about 2 months after she arrived, she called me into her room. It was just before my shift ended, at about 3 a.m. I was doing my last med run when I heard a raspy voice.
Sam, come in, please.
I smiled as I slowly creaked open the door. However, the smile quickly faded when I looked over to her. The room was dark, Yet, I was still able to make out where Aggie was. She was sitting up, having a conversation with a dark spot in the room. Now creeped out, I looked at Aggie, still sitting up, still talking.
Aggie, you can't be sitting up. You'll hurt yourself.
I started to say as I walked over to her.
Oh, Sam, thank you for everything you've done. I feel more alive than ever. Come talk with us, Sam.
Aggie says, gesturing to the dark spot in the room.
Aggie, who are you talking to?
I asked, unable to stop the shaking in my voice.
Oh, you don't know? I'm talking to Peter,
Aggie says, smiling. I stepped back, my heart pounding. Before I could get any words in, Aggie started nodding her head. She then turned back to me, smiling.
Peter says he knows you too. Why don't you come say hi?
Body shaking, voice quivering, I slowly stepped out of the room.
Hold on right there, Aggie. I'll be right back.
Unable to contain myself, I shut the door and fell to my knees, gasping for breath. Right away, my coworker Anne ran up to me, helping me to my feet.
Sam, are you okay? What happened?
Anne asked frantically.
It's Agatha. She's sitting up by herself, talking to someone named Peter,
I said, shakily pointing to Agatha's door. However, Anne looked confused instead of scared.
Sam, what are you talking about?
Breathing heavily, I stood up and pointed to Agatha's door once more.
Just go in there. You'll see what I mean.
Anne stood there, looking at me with a puzzled look.
Sam, why would I look in a janitor closet? And who are you talking about?
What? I looked up at Agatha's door. Sure enough, it was labeled janitor. I fell back, heart still pounding.
What the fuck is going on? I was just in there, in Agatha Jones' room.
Sam, Agatha Jones has been dead for 50 years.